All right, welcome back to the 1% podcast number 19. Here at the 1% Studios, well, the temporary studios. Yeah, we got the new one's almost ready, but we don't have Sean here today. He's taking care of a little bit of business. We do have Garrett, and we've got lots to talk about. Garrett, how you doing?
Doing great, man. We're rocking and rolling right now. Some projects. We're getting the container done at the house, which again, just like we said, podcast studio coming. Super excited about that. Just getting wrapped up. We're gonna do some taping and floating this weekend. Don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out, And then we're building the weight room right now too. So we just got all the base laid out there. We're about to get the concrete done for the metal building to get sat on top of. So we're rolling. We're doing good.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier this week, and he'd asked how tryouts went for us, and we went well. I think we've got a good team on deck, but he said, he knew a lot of folks that were interested, talked about being interested in coming to the tribe, but instead went, to some of the, I guess, more established brands that are out there. I don't know if they're better baseball teams per se, but just, nicer uniforms. I don't know. But I asked him what he thought that was. I said, do you think, folks are just afraid to drive out to Bernie or what's the run? He says, I just don't think people know what Garrett can really do for their kids. And in saying that, I thought, man, if they would have seen the misfits that you had with the 2027s and how a lot of those boys look now, and kind of what you're building all over the place in terms of developing athletes, it'd be a different run. But I think all that will come with time, and I think that's good because it gives you more time with what you got now. But what do you say to that, to somebody that maybe chooses to go somewhere where it's a little safer? Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, just kind of like you said, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like at the end of the day, like you're not really going to understand what's out there until you go see it, man. And we don't want guys just like showing up to come see what we're doing. Like we got to focus on the people that are in front of us, and just like you said, like that's what we're going to do. So I guess to answer that question, it's like we're just going to keep plugging away with our guys, right? Like that's all we can do. Sean and I talk about that all the time. Is I have to focus on the guys that are in front of me. Like, I can't worry about who's down the road. I can't worry about, they have this player, or these guys are so good. Like, we can't worry about that. Like, my job is on these guys. And I have to look at these guys like they're the best baseball players out there, and that we are grooming them to be highly successful baseball players. Because if not, I think what happens is we honestly start to diminish the product, and then we almost solidify those reasons of why people didn't show up, right? And so, like, for us, it's like, at the end of the day, we got 12 spots. Right, like there's thousands of baseball players in San Antonio. I can find 12. You know what I mean? So for one kid not to come or one kid not to show up, like, I don't need you. Like at the end of the day, like just like Nick Saban said, it's like I'd love to win with you, but I don't need you to win. Right? I can win without you. And it's just like what we're gonna do is like, hey, I don't need you. Either you're on board or you're not. If you're not on board, go do what you need to do, and like hopefully it works out for your son. Like, I don't want any bad things for him. Like, I want you to be good. I want your kid to be good, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, that's what we're in this business for. Yeah. It's like every single person that we ever touch or come across, like, even if we're just influencing them through the podcast or through the information we put out on social media, like, I want that to benefit somebody. That's the intent and the driving force behind everything we do is, man, I want your kid to just take a nugget, like something, one piece, and make him that level him up. You know what I mean? And I think if I hold myself to that accountability and every day that I wake up, it's like, man, I'm just trying to affect one person, right? Like I'm just trying to impact one player. I'm trying to impact one individual's mindset and one individual's life to be able to level them up to the next spot, right? Because I think if we start thinking across the board and like looking at everything, it's too big. Right, you're going past today, right? I'm going past where I'm currently at. I can't worry about what's going on down the road, right? I can't worry about what's this team going to be next year. Like I have to worry about right now, right? Those kids are in front of me and they're ready for the now. We got to make sure that we're doing it that way. So
yeah, well, amen to that. And I would invite folks, if you do ever have a question or a thought, snag a lesson with these guys and come see what it's about. And it's not for everybody, but I think, I know that we're happy, and really, I got to tell you, we got to see some of your other teams try out. Yeah. And man, your oldest boys, what are they? The 24s. 24s. They're looking pretty good. Give us the scouting report on those guys and what you expect to see from them over the next year.
Just dogs, man. That group has been so much fun to watch, and the growth. That's what's crazy. You get these guys in, and they're still kind of meek and undersized, and just pre-puberty players, right? And but we saw something in that group, and we knew that, hey, this group's going to be really, really good one day. I think it's a really good sign when you go to tryouts and you have to cut 3 guys that are really competent and good baseball players, because either what we have already or the people that we've already brought on, that they're just as good or better. You know what I mean? Sure. And so I think for these guys, like, man, we're looking for us, like, we just sent out some more information to them for some colleges, like in terms of like the contacts, like us talking to some schools for them. And there's 8 guys that are going to be going to some stuff soon, like that have been asked by those coaches, like, hey, who are your guys? We got a bunch of dudes on that team that are being good. A couple arms that are showing up and starting to throw some upper level velo. Like we got a lefty that's up to 86 and is really good on the mound in terms of stuff. And I think he's going to buy himself a chance into high level college baseball one day if he keeps going. And there's a lot of guys position player wise that are just athletic and can hit the baseball hard, and they can play defense really well. So I'm excited for that group. Like this summer, Sean and I talked about it. This summer is gonna be huge because we got to go play now. Yeah. Right. Like we got such good talent. We have guys that competed really well. Like we got to go see something, right? Like we got to go see what Florida's like. We got to go see what Georgia's like. And it's not even so much to go out there and just like try to do something that we can. It's more so like, dude, these guys need to get put in front of the right people, right? Like we need to put these guys in the right environment and give them what they deserve. Like we told them at the beginning of the summer last year, if you want to go win, if you want to go play at the higher and bigger tournaments that summer ball has to offer, you need to prove it to us this summer, right? Well, when you go 27-7 and win 3 tournaments and you're the top 4 seed and finish top 4 in like 5 of the tournaments that we're in, hey, you earned that. You know what I mean? Like you deserve to go and be in front of the most challenging stuff that we can give you. And if it means we got to travel, we got to travel, right? So we're excited for that. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
Yeah, I think the same guy I was talking to about tryouts. They just got back from Vegas. I think they played with Lone Star.
Yep.
And they're a little younger than we are, but said, every region has an identity. Yeah. I think California was shortstops and raking the ball. Florida, Georgia Southeast was speed and agility, and then he said Texas was good pitching and bombs. Yeah. It's like so it's kind of cool to get out of your element and see what's going on.
Something different. Yep.
Yeah, and so kind of a little bit of a pivot. I know kids are still working; they're out there doing stuff, and as part of the tryouts. And you guys have done this before, but it really hit home with me this time. We spend so much time warming up and talking about the purpose of warming up correctly and having intent and how, sort of like how you prepared when your intent has got a direct correlation to results. Talk a little bit about that and how that's a fabric of what we're doing and how are you going to implement that into the season moving into 2023?
Yeah, I think it's hard in terms of the team setting specifically, right? Mainly because I think what you have to be able to do and what the craft has to come out in terms of how you craft practice plans is it's got to be something that's exciting for those guys to show up to, right? Like the environment has to be manipulated in a way that when guys show up to practice, they are ecstatic to be there, right? They're eager to learn. They're hungry to get better, right? If you set that up, I think intent takes care of itself, right? Now, we also come across the players that at the end of the day, do they really want to be there? Do they really want to be the best that they can be? Maybe not, right? And that's just part of the game. That's just part of growing up. Like, I was 13 at one time, right? Like, I remember what it was like, right? Like, I would show up to practice. It probably wasn't the best, and I wasn't super excited to be there. But I think that intent and we have always said to the listeners and to anybody that we've ever trained and talked about, hey, you have got to work every single day, right? We say that all the time. You got to work, you got to work, you got to work. And I'm honestly starting to shift a little bit of gears, right? Like slight shift in terms of Like, man, like, I don't know if I want a guy to work every single day, right? Like, if I could get a kid to have 3 really focused days of what he's doing, right? Like, let's just say that we're making an adjustment on hitting, right? Like, hey, this guy's a heavy pusher off of his back leg. Like, it's pushy. It's a pushy swing. He doesn't rotate well, doesn't stay in the ground and create force, like, just super pushy, right? And if I told a kid, hey, I need you to do 3 days a week of this progression of drills, and I need it to be solely focused on making this adjustment for this reason. If I had a guy go and do that 3 days a week and it was perfect focus, and then you had a guy go 7 days a week and he's just swinging and it's kind of just like, I get on the tee, slap the ball around a little bit, not really focus on what I'm doing, no real drills, no real feels, right? Then I do some front toss, maybe just go to BP, try to hit bombs, right? Yeah. Well, that kid's not getting better. Now, we could, in the past, and I still think there's some value to it, like hitting's hitting, right? Like, if you get your ass dominated and you're not hitting the baseball, like, a competitor is going to make adjustments to try to not do that, right? Yeah. But even for me, it's like, I think intent drives results in game. So if I don't drill intent and I don't have focus in my hitting and being very in tune with what I'm doing, when I get to game, I'm a mindless baseball player. Yeah. Which is like adjustments that Sean and I are trying to make for our hitting, just like team practice hitting, is I think at times guys become mindless hitters when we hit off the machine. Right? So if we just hit off the machine all the time, like, yeah, they look great. Ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta. We're drilling balls all over the cage, but we get in game, it's like, why are we not timing up fastballs? Why are we chasing breakers in the dirt, right? Is it because we've created a lack of adjustability? I don't think so, right? I think it's just more so guys get in the cage, and what does it turn into? Swings, right? Oh, my name's getting called. Time to get in there. Get my 7. If I swing and miss at 4, it's whatever, right? If I hit my 3, cool. And I get out and go on to the next thing, right? And I would rather take minimal reps with ultra focus on what's going on so that I'm understanding what's there than just work, right? Whereas in the past, and like that's a fault on me probably, just as a young coach and where I was at is like I would always say work over everything, right? Like, and now this is where the balance is. Like you can't be afraid to mess yourself up. You see how that kind of causes some issues, right? Like if you're in your training on your own or whatever, like if you're afraid to mess up your swing or you're afraid to mess up your delivery or whatever that is, I think that's where you get in trouble.
Yeah, and I would argue that, less reps of more focused training can eventually turn into 4, 5, 6, 7 days of really good training, right? So like doing it the right way and building towards.
Well, if you think about it like this too, like depending on what school of thought you come from in terms of like skill acquisition and like guys getting better in what you believe in, for some, like if you're 100% mechanical based, right? And let's say you go to a lesson twice a week or you go to a lesson in practice and you make 2 steps forward and then the other 5 days of the week, like you're not focused on that and you're just taking like terrible swings and it's lazy and it's not working towards a specific goal, well, now you're taking 5 steps back. So I think some guys go in the opposite direction at times, right? Like they do all this work and it's like, I'm not getting better. Well, you're not doing the right things, right? So that's where I think like we said this too, is like at what point does a player like hit their peak or at what point does a player know if he's really getting better or not? And I think it's just like one, seeing the results in game, right? And then looking at the tangibles, right? Is my velo going up? Am I hitting the baseball harder, right? Am I able to hit more baseballs harder consistently, right? Is my average exit velocity going up? All those things you can use as like some intent and focus behind like, okay, are we getting better or not, right? Yeah. And so I think as guys go through and they look at, hey, where am I at, right? Like, is this working? Is it not? Am I working in the wrong direction? Well, I think a guy that's going to go out there and consistently work and stay focused on if I'm getting better, probably going to be getting better. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if they're questioning, am I getting better? I would say at some point, if they keep moving forward, they're going to be, right?
Yeah. And I would say, I guess to extend on that, as people are working and getting in the cage or on the mound or whatever between now talking about your high school kids who are preparing for tryouts, are you guys sharing any wisdom with those guys? What are you doing to get them prepared? Now they've made the team, your team, but now they've got to go out and do the next step, right? And make their high school team. What are you talking to those guys about, and how are you helping set them up for success once they get on that baseball field at high school?
I hope all the work you did earlier is ready to go for you. You know, we told one of our guys that the other day, it's like, man, like you got 4 months, or excuse me, you got like four or 5 weeks. Like, I don't know what you're going to change between now and then. Like, in reality, like, are we really going to do anything different? I think the biggest thing is now it's about trusting what you've done.
Yeah.
Right? Like, trust what you've done. Now, you might, like, because to me, like, if I'm a player, I don't want a coach coming in 4 weeks out of tryouts, and this is my first time ever trying out for a high school or a team, right, and like completely breaking me down and changing my swing, because I'm gonna lack trust. You know what I mean? So sure. I think right now it's just more so groove yourself, right? Like get yourself groomed, like go out there and hit every day. Just make sure you're doing the stuff to get ready, just in terms of taking ground balls, taking fly balls. Make sure your arm's in shape and throwing, and you need to be hitting with some focus of whatever that is for you that gets you good, right? Like, hey, this is when I'm feeling good. When I'm doing this and I'm executing this, this is when my swing feels great. Well, let's go out there every day and hone that in to where it becomes second nature, right? But in reality, like I think at this point, it's like, dude, you got to go out there and trust yourself.
Yeah. Trust
yourself, number one. But what we mean by that is you know what makes you a good baseball player, right? Sean has said this before. We tell our older guys this all the time, especially when we go to showcases and we're in games. Are you super fast, right? Do you run a sub 7, like 6'7", 60, right? Can get down the line in like a 4.1 to 4.3, right? Somewhere that's pretty quick, right? If you can run, you need to be showing that off. Like, don't go to tryouts and not run your best and, sure. and pull up on balls, or like you hit a ball in tryouts and like you don't bust it out of the box to the best that you can. Like, if you're fast, show it off, right? If you have a cannon, make sure that cannon's ready to go in the bullpen and anywhere you play in the field. Like, show it off, right? If you have unbelievable hands and you can just consistently like field the baseball, you can get to, and you got range, you're just a springy infielder or springy outfielder, show it off, right? If you can hit, you got tools, you can hit the ball the other way, you got good barrel control and you can move the ball around the field, show it off. If you got power, don't get in there and just try to hit ground balls. Like, son, show off your stuff, right? Yeah. So I think that's really what we're trying to groom these guys, and their mindset is like, make sure you know what you're good at. Yeah. If you don't know what you're good at, like, we got a problem. Like, we should know by this point, going into high school, what am I good at and what am I not good at?
Yeah. Show off what you're good at. Bring you, right? That's how it goes. Well, you know, so I think just kind of taking another pivot. So you've got kids who are in high school. You've got 2 teams that are you know in your second and third season with you. You know, I think that's going well. And now you've got a new crop from 2028s.
Yes.
Some young bucks. Maybe some rumors of that even growing beyond next year. You know, how does your focus, you specifically, how does your focus change when you've been working with these older kids to kind of get them dialing back in to those 13 new kids?
Oh man, it's been good. So we've basically just taken everything and tried, like, it's almost like a memoir of South Texas Tri baseball, right? Like, what have we done in the past? What are we botching? And then what are we like adding to, right? And so I think the biggest is getting the stuff that we believe in, right? And we're typing it out to where it's like, when we show up to practice, like, hey, here's the focus for the day. Then this is review, and like almost like this is what you can take home and remind yourself of what we're doing, right? So just like fundamentals of stuff, like the simple fundamentals we'll talk about, our simple approach, right? Some stuff about base running, the cuts and relays, right? First and third D, like just trying to go back to the simple stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think in the past, and even what we saw this fall, with some of these teams, like we coached it, but we coached it like this. And we're like rolling through it. It's like, hey, you need to know this, right? Sure. And I think Sean and I take it for granted, like how little these guys really know baseball, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of coaches do, and some look at it and see that fault, and others don't. But for us, it's like, man, we got a lot of guys that really don't know the game.
Yeah, or they might know it, but they don't know it in the language, the vernacular,
right.
vocabulary
exactly.
that
matches.
Yeah, and so much of that, you know, so much of message delivery and message penetration is making sure that the subject or the intended target can accept and receive the information. In this case, you want to make sure those young kids are learning, because once they're speaking the language, then they can talk sort of as fast.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing. It's like everybody's going to perceive information differently. Like we could take 2 kids and tell them both to swing up on the baseball, right? Mm-hmm. One kid's going to maybe do it really well and like do it how it's like the big leaguers look, right? And then another dude might like absolutely like dump his torso and like swing the shit like it was almost a golf club, right? Yeah. Like whatever that is. And so like I think information getting perceived, like we've got to dumb it to like literally elementary, like ABCD, right? Like everybody knows ABCD, everybody knows 1, 2, 3, 4. We got to know it on that simple of a thing, because I think at times like we do overcomplicate baseball, but it's because we're just trying to get guys to understand. So we dive down this rabbit hole for that individual, trying to get them to like grab onto something that like makes sense, right? But I think from the team setting early on, it's got to be simple, and it's got to get the point across about what we believe in and what we need, right? Like what we're really trying to coach in certain environments across the game.
What was some of the feedback you got from those parents, and what sort of parent evaluation did you do on some of the folks that came and tried out?
On the 28s?
Yeah, I would say maybe across the board, but yeah, really the 28s, because they're new into the work.
Sure. I think just a lot of questions. That's the biggest thing. Like everybody just wants to know. It's just like we said at the beginning, like you don't know what you don't know, right? So I think once we start talking and we give some information to them, the kind of the eyes open up, and it's kind of like interested in like really what we mean by a lot of things. And I think some things like there's not really a answer, like a vocal answer that I can give. You just have to see it, just like we talked about in the past. Like you got to see it, right? Like you got to see it happen. You got to see the progression and the time that's spent and really what's going on, right? But I think the biggest thing is like people are just excited, right? New opportunity. I think they like the idea of getting to play for us because we've either coached their kid in the past, or it's something to where they know that, hey, it's going to be a lot more like effort put into my kid, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's from the parents, like that's what they were looking for, and that's what we're obviously going to provide to them.
With that being said, what do you do, or what's the idea to utilize like the corporate knowledge you have with some of your current athletes, and to getting those folks to buy in, the new players to buy into the track culture? Is there any integration on that front or thought?
I think it's keep the environment the same for us, right? Like I think, how do you build something like this consistently and always have it be working up the chain? I think two things. One, you got to have the older guys around, right? Like the older guys and the guys that have gone through it, and the guys that we know play the game the way we want them to. They've got to come around, and they just got to show it off, right? Like when my Reed comes back this winter from college and playing his first fall in college baseball, like I want him around the guys, right? I want them to see like, hey, that's what you could be, right? Like you could be that one day. Yeah. And then I think on the flip side is you just never let up. Right? Like you never back off of what you believe in. You never stop pushing them, because I think that's where the culture gets set in stone, right? Is hey, these guys aren't here to joke around. Like they're going to call me out if I'm not doing my best. Yeah. They're going to call me out if my effort's bad, right? They're always going to have high energy. They're always going to be pushing me to be better. They're not going to let me take a rep off, right? Yeah. I think as long as that's there, we're good, right?
What's cool to me sometimes is how excited the younger kids get when the older kids or older athletes recognize that they've done something well, or they're doing something well. There's no hesitation to give those guys kudos. Sure. And that's equal on the other side. It's equal to give them shit on the other side. Yep. But it's a nice balance, because they treat them as one of the team.
Yeah, one of them. And I think we've always said that we want to create something one day where it's just like it's family sounds kind of eyewash, right? But like something to where it's like, hey, these guys up and down are looking out for each other, right? One that holds you accountable, right? But they're always around, right? Like we got older guys coming in and training on their own and hitting on their own and doing their work, right? While younger guys are around. So they kind of see each other, and they both wear the same stuff, and they know that they're in the organization. So they start having that conversation. So it's just another like person to lean on, right? It's another person to look up to. And I think the more that I learn, especially in this game, but I think in any successful business, is like you've got to have people around you that are smarter or better at something that help elevate the people underneath you, right? Sure. Just like Nick Saban, like talking about how many all the analysts that he has underneath him that were ex-head football coaches somewhere, right? Yeah. Like he surrounds himself with the best of the best, right? And he's not afraid of that. Like that's the same for us. Like we want the best of the best around, so that we're always growing and like it's always creating something better, right, for the younger guys especially.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, yep. And I know that you and Sean are students of the game, and you're always looking to push the game forward and looking within yourself or utilizing resources. What are you guys doing now, or what are some of the topics du jour that you're looking at and looking to to integrate into your teachings, your coaching?
A lot of the things are now just from like the team standpoint is some new infield play stuff that we're trying to instill. So just kind of diving into some different aspects of infield play that we might not have looked at in the past. And then the second is how to integrate different types of hitting training, right? So like, I'm not going to call them games, but like drills and kind of BP sets, right? That integrate more of an all-inclusive type of practice, right? To where it puts a little bit more on every single person that's out there, and there's always something going on, right? So where it's not just like the hitters hitting and then like we got 10 guys out there shagging and we're not really doing something, right? But something that gets everybody involved and engaged, and every single rep is potentially getting better, right? And then for us too, like we got the ABCA coming up, so we'll be going to the ABCA again, which is the American Baseball Coaches Association conference that they have this year. It's in Nashville, so that's gonna be a blast. We're
Man, don't get lost.
Yeah, don't get lost. We'll see. But yeah, so that's coming up. That'll be January 5th to January 8th. We'll be out there in Nashville, get to learn from obviously the best of the best, man. Like they have every single best college coaches up there talking on something. A lot of MLB coaches or professional coaches talking. And it's just a place for us to, one, make connections with coaches that are out there, but then the second is to learn and take a lot of just good information home to bring home to these guys. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a good year. I know we're looking forward to it as a parent. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think with the podcast, with the new studio, with a bunch of really good guests starting to line up, I think it's going to be a really good year for 1% baseball overall. Aside from the tribe, I think 1% baseball is you're gonna really see some new stuff. If you guys haven't seen the content before, there's 18 of these things online on YouTube. Go there, like, subscribe. We'll be doing some more stuff to get you guys integrated. But this is really a platform that we're hoping to, and I'll let you talk about it here in a second. What to take next level, so that some folks can, you don't know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. It'll be a great way to start to find out what you're getting with 1% baseball and the philosophy behind what's being utilized to build these tribe teams. Yeah,
for sure. I think too, like, for us and to everybody out there, like, especially the podcast, we do this for free. We do this because, one, we love talking baseball. The second is we love talking about just like motivation, trying to get guys to understand what it really takes to be successful in anything they do. So, for those that are out there, if you got somebody, your dog, your aunt, your mom, your dad, whoever, send it to them. Give us a like, give us a follow. That's all it takes. We don't ask anything in return for this thing. So just like spreading the message is the biggest thing for us that we want, and just to get people aware of what we're doing. You know what I mean? And then also, like, for us, like, just like we've said before, reach out. Don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to shoot a text. I get back to you immediately, but like, we want to be able to build. And just like I said in the middle of that podcast, I want to help somebody every single day, right? So if I can help you, if I can answer a question, if I can give you maybe my best advice or point you in a direction that's to somebody that could, that's what we're looking for, man. Just push the game forward, keep getting guys better, make an impact here in San Antonio. San Antonio should be the best baseball community in the country, in my opinion. There's just so many good guys, and I think people need to come together a little bit better and make this a competitive place, So
it'd be nice to play here versus
Houston. Let's get some turf fields, play here, So it's good. It's good.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Garrett, for your time again. Sean, we miss you, and we'll be back again in a week, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate y'all.